Welcome to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Custis Coleman. Custis is a second-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2025, and he is also the president of the Darden Outdoors Club. I recently connected with Custis to talk more about his background, his decision to pursue an MBA, what led him to Darden, his experience so far, and much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this episode is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to Experience Darden so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. Now, without further ado, here's my interview with Custis Coleman. Custis, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to talk with you. How's everything going? How are you doing today?
It's a great day today. I'm sitting outside in one of the courtyards off Flagler, and everything's going really well. It's been really fun being back in school.
Yeah, I imagine it's beautiful here in DC. I imagine it's a beautiful day down in Charlottesville too. Yeah,
no, it's blue skies, sunny. It's wonderful.
Yeah, September, October, kind of peak season in Charlottesville. It's a great time. Fall, just generally beautiful there.
Yeah, no, the leaves haven't started to turn yet, but we're starting to get that cooler weather. The mornings are kind of 50 degrees, and it's nice. I feel like we earned it from the summertime.
Yeah, a little muggy in the summer. The humidity is very high. Well, thanks so much for taking time to come on the podcast, and look forward to this conversation. So we always ask the same first question. Tell us a little bit more about you and what you did before coming to Darden.
Yeah, so my background, I'm actually from Richmond, Virginia, and I went to UVA for undergraduate. So at Darden, I'm called a double who, because I'm here twice. But I studied systems engineering with a business minor at UVA. And after school, I wanted to try something different. So I actually took a meandering path, I would say, compared to most Darden students. Immediately after graduation, I moved down to Texas, where I actually was a dog trainer and quail guide on a ranch there for about 4 months. Found out that really enjoyed it, learned a lot, but wanted to kind of use my degree a bit more, and ended up taking a job out in the outdoor industry. So kind of the common theme there, out in Montana. So I worked for a company called Onyx Maps. We built outdoor mapping products. So for hunting, off-roading, backcountry skiing. And I started in the marketing department and then moved my way into product management. And I was there for 4 years, which was a really great experience before coming back to school.
That sounds like really interesting work. When you're a product manager for a company like that, what does that look like? What kind of product were you managing?
Yeah, so we had 3 apps, hunting, off-roading, and backcountry skiing, and they all had different use cases. But as a product manager, you're really leading through influence on what the users want. So you work with the engineering team and the design teams on the how. That's engineering, and then what it's going to look like is the design. But you're really trying to communicate and undiscover, what the users wants. That could be through customer interviews, through a lot of data analysis, which was sort of my strong suit and background, and then build it and put it into your apps and measure it to see how it did.
Well, I'm speaking for myself, but it may also be the case for many of our listeners. I've never used an app for backcountry skiing or off-roading or hunting. What's an example or two of something like a user would want out of an app like that?
Yeah, no. So the main premise that our company kind of highlighted on is sort of know before you go, and really it's really showcasing where you are. So if you imagine Google Maps, it's your blue dot, right, or your arrow, and it overlays it on streets. But for backcountry skiing, hunting, or off-roading, you need to know where you are on a different type of landscape. So if you're a great use case is, let's just say, a overlander or someone driving a full-size van, you want to make sure you're not taking that van down an accidental Jeep trail or a dirt bike trail. So it shows where you are, and it overlays what type of trails are around you. And if you're on public land, private land, to make sure you're legally recreating. That's sort of the main use cases of the apps.
So also a very basic question here, but I imagine some of these places are pretty remote. The app, do you have to have a cell signal or you download it to your phone? Like how does it work?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And you actually, so you download it to your phone, so it saves the imaging to your phone, and then your GPS actually still functions when you don't have service. So it essentially turns your phone into a GPS device, like a Garmin. So you can see exactly where you are as long as you've downloaded your images or your offline maps, is what we called them, to your phone before you went out and lost service. You're good to go.
Wow. All right. I learned something new. I didn't know the phone still continued to track GPS even when you didn't have cell service. So, how'd you get interested in pursuing an MBA?
Yeah, so MBA has always sort of been on the back burner for me. I think I studied engineering in school, but like I said, I did the business minor, and I always have had a peripheral interest in business. And so it kind of came to a point where I was in product management, and I really wanted exposure to a variety of different industries. So I felt that I knew my niche, but I didn't know really what else was out there. And I felt that I was lacking in kind of some of the fundamental skills that you really need to have to succeed in the business world. Namely maybe some boring basics like accounting, but also just how do you think about business and strategy for more of a qualitative example. And so to me, yeah, I was really attracted to investing in myself, and the MBA was the logical next step on how to do that.
And what got you interested in Darden specifically?
So I knew about Darden, just like I said, from going to school here undergrad, but it really came to the limelight. We ended up moving back from Montana, so I met my wife actually out in Montana, where I was working for those 5 years. We moved back to Virginia for her OBGYN residency. So she's actually an OBGYN resident at the UVA hospital. And that October, it was kind of, well, here push comes to shove. I should apply to Darden. Why not now? Specifically because it worked well with us being here at the same time. And I was also starting to hit a little bit of those diminishing returns in what I was learning, and really wanted to step forward and learn in some new industries. And yeah, so that was the October, I guess now 2 years ago, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, in admissions, we have a lot of conversations with prospective students trying to figure out that right time to go back to school and do an MBA. And based on the conversations I've had here on the podcast, a lot of times it does feel like people kind of come to the end of whatever they're doing. Like they are doing it, they're maybe not learning as much, maybe not as challenged, maybe the next thing is not as interesting to them as taking 2 years off and being a full-time MBA student. And it kind of, I don't know, there's like an organic aspect to it. It's not the sort of thing, oh, I'm planning to do 3 years and then go back to school. It just kind of, it comes up as you think about your career progression and where you are.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. One of the things too I did was it was really nice being in Charlottesville, but I actually reached out to a bunch of Darden professors and also Darden alumni before I came, where I really wanted to speak with them about their expertise, maybe in teaching, or their experience they had. And that was probably what sealed the envelope on sending my admissions application in, was just everyone had such a transformative and exceptional experience. And talking with the professors just got me really, really excited to potentially come to a school because of the relationships you would have with them, their industry knowledge. And yeah, so it was partly location, but I also did my research too. And then the timing all worked out. And that's what made me, submit the application.
So you're already in Charlottesville. You're already familiar with UVA, but Darden and graduate school business was new to you. So what was the adjustment like in those first couple months of being a first-year student at Darden?
I would say so. Yeah, I didn't have any moving problems or transition problems there. But I think to me, it was just amazing how much I learned in the first couple of months. I remember coming to class, you're learning how to prep your cases, you're meeting all these incredible people, and it would just sort of like you just consistently stack takeaways from class on what you're learning. And so it was just this incredible time where it took some adjustment to get used to, I think, the workload that you might have to do during the first core year at Darden. But it was just, it really validated what I was hearing from the alumni and the professors before I came of, look, you're going to come in, it's going to be hard, but you're just going to walk away with so much more knowledge and such great relationships. And that's really what happened during even week one.
What section were you?
I was section E.
Section E. Okay, we've had a few people from section E on the podcast. Do you have a favorite tradition or something you did as a section that stands out?
Well, what was one of the funny learnings that I had during my first couple months was all the different cheers that the sections have. And uh, when when you think of the sections at Darden, the way I describe it to people is just imagine Hogwarts, where you have all the different houses and they have their colors and they have their mascots and they have their cheers or their personalities, and that's sort of what it's like. And so I remember the second years came in that when I was a first year and taught us the cheer, and we would do that every opening class of the week and closing class of the week, and it was quite loud, but it was really fun. It was I think you get to know your section, and it really enhances the learning experience being with the same people for your core classes the first year.
Yeah, is the cheer something like "I believe that E will win"? Something along those lines.
Yeah, that's it.
Shades of the U.S. men's national team, I think, in that cheer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does seem nice to be together with that group through the core, which is obviously it's a very busy time. You got a lot going on. You got not just class, but you have career stuff. And oh, by the way, you're trying to make friends and social stuff and Darden Cup, and it's nice to have that anchor of the section.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. I think that was not something that I anticipated, how close I would get with my section, but that's been really rewarding to have those friends. And yeah, I mean, I even think about it in class. I remember actually, a couple points where after class you'd kind of discuss with someone, or someone would reach out like, "Hey, I really enjoyed your point during class," and or actually even better, I disagreed with what you said, maybe in an ethics class or leading organizations class, but I'd love to get coffee with you and let's chat about it more. And I think that's really where you build kind of it's a room of trust among people, and it allows you to have these conversations that you would have you wouldn't approach with to a stranger. So it's been amazing.
I want to ask a little bit about your career interests. Obviously, career interests can evolve during that first year. When you came to Darden, what were you focused on, and did it change over the course of your first year at Darden?
Yeah, so I came into Darden primarily interested in entrepreneurship. I actually had a startup that I was working on before Darden, which was with the theme of the outdoor industry. They'll be surprised, but it helped outfitters manage their guides. So if you have multiple guides, they might work for multiple shops. How do you make sure that when a customer books a trip, they can schedule someone to take you on that trip? I learned very quickly that they weren't really willing to pay for that in this industry. But I would say entrepreneurship has still been the primary focus. And what's been amazing is that Darden has exposed me a little bit to a different flavor of entrepreneurship, which is called entrepreneurship through acquisition. So instead of starting a company or a business from 0 to 1 customer, you actually buy a stable business, more sizable, still a small business, but you finance it through debt, equity, and stuff that you'll learn in school, and you become the CEO of that business. And so that's actually been a very appealing path for me, and something that I've put a lot of focus on into even the first time immediately after I started hearing about it, which was I think the fall of my first year.
And I feel like ETA has grown in popularity. I hear a lot more students express interest in it, want to do something with it. Certainly hear it a lot from our executive MBA students as well. Why do you think entrepreneurship through acquisition is becoming more popular, is attractive to people?
I think it's a little bit twofold. To me, one, it's branding. I think there's always been the possibility to go out and buy a small business. People have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years. But I do think that you'll learn in school that the skills that you're learning are really applicable, and you do simulations in your core classes, and you sort of validate it through the internships that you do too. But you really know what's going on, and you kind of want to bet on yourself. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that you could do a good job. And Darden really prepares you or business schools in general really prepare you for knowing a lot about, or a little about a lot, sort of the mile wide, maybe a foot deep approach. And so you have the understanding of how to lead people, you have the operational knowledge, you have the financial knowledge. And so then it's go try it in an industry where you bet on yourself, and then you have more of an equity component where if it does work out, there's some significant upsides.
Well, how did you spend your first year summer, given your interest in entrepreneurship and ETA?
So I actually did not a complete curveball, but a complete pivot from where I was before, which is tech. And so I viewed my summer internship as, how do I, similar to Darden, just keep investing in myself and try something new and sort of maximize my learnings. And so that led me to actually private equity. I interned at a firm called Iron Path Capital here in town, and they are what's called a lower middle market private equity firm, which means sort of smaller to medium businesses. And the way I thought about it was, can I go work for someone where they could kind of teach me or show me the ropes a little bit more, where I'm still providing value to them, but of what you need to do to operationalize and improve these small to medium businesses. And so, yeah, no, it was a phenomenal summer. And really, really enjoyed hearing and learning from them on how they took these businesses and then grew them.
All right. Well, you're back at second year. What have you been excited about as you look forward here in your final year at Darden?
Yeah, no, I mean, the first thing is I had such a great approach my first year, or a great time my first year, I think primarily from the amount that second years gave back to me. And so the time they would take, the different clubs, all of that. And so I'm looking forward to giving back to them. I think Darden is such a strong community, and it's not just, like I said, your section or who you're in core with, but it's sort of everyone who's here really wants to give back to others. And so I'm actually the president of the Darden Outdoors Club. So it's organizing events like the first year camping trip, the skiing trip, the rafting trip. Like, to me, it's doing coffee chats with first years. I'm trying to be as present as possible so that the first years have such a great experience like I did. And then I'm also a nerd. Maybe you could have inferred that from how much I talk about the classes here, but I'm really looking forward to the second year classes too. I mean, you get to kind of choose your own flavor a little bit more in your second year once you go through core, because you have electives and whatnot. And to me, it's been really, really fun and really rewarding dabbling in all the areas that I'm interested in. I would have never thought that I would take more accounting classes after core, but it's been, I'm picking those classes just based on the professors and what I'm learning from them, and I'm really, really enjoying them.
I want to come back to talking about electives, but before we do that, I want to talk a little bit more about the Darden Outdoors Club. Yeah. So one of the things that I know from just talking with students is that there's these trips that happen, and obviously a lot of energy around them. You mentioned a few of them. Tell us, like, what's a camping trip like, or the whitewater rafting trip? What do these things entail for our listeners who this might be new to them? They may never have camped before, might be a little intimidated by this idea. Like, how does this work?
Yeah. So I'll actually start out with the kind of the mission of the Darden Outdoors Club. It's to bring students together in a third space. It's not to be the most extreme club at Darden. It's actually just to provide an outlet to do things with other students in a different area that's outside of both classes and recruiting. And so we we actually have around 400 members, so almost 2/3 of the student body here, and or definitely over half. And we do a bunch of trips that get people outside and sort of maybe stop thinking about the stresses of class and recruiting. And so we start that off by running the first year camping trip for incoming students. And so this is a trip where we go down to around Newcastle, Virginia, or sorry, outside of Roanoke, Virginia, where we camp. We have a little bit of tubing. We do a big hike, and it's just an opportunity after for your first week of orientation to decompress. It's not intimidating at all because we have showers. We actually have indoor lodging. We try and be as accessible as possible for all these trips, so that no matter your experience level, we want you to be able to go on these trips and enjoy the outdoors with your classmates.
Yeah, tell us about some of the other trips. So that sounds really really nice. I was imagining like tents and all this kind of stuff, but you mentioned indoor lodging, and so maybe even for the novice campers, it's accessible.
Yeah. I mean, you can camp if you want to. I mean, a lot of people do. You can rent tents as well, so you don't need to own any of the gear to do most of these trips. And that's sort of the point, like I said, is for them to be accessible. The other trips we do, I mean, we do 2 ski trips. We do one in West Virginia for those who sort of are more learning. We do one actually out in Park City, Utah, or a Western trip every year for the more advanced skiers or people who want to see kind of a different part of the country. We whitewater raft on the Gauley River. We do a caving trip actually up to Luray Caverns. But those are sort of the headliners, but we also supplement them with like a weekly hiking series, smaller group trips where you might go rock climbing or mountain biking. Maybe you learn how to paddleboard on the Beaver Creek Reservoir, which is out sort of towards Crozet area. So yeah, no, we want to offer as many trips as possible for the members that join the club. And it's a really phenomenal experience. Like I said, it's how I met a lot of my second year friends that actually ended up graduating last year, was through the Outdoors Club. And in addition to getting closer with the fellow first years at the time.
Tell us about a few hikes that you do in the hiking series, because our listeners have likely heard that outdoor activities, there's a lot to do in the Charlottesville area. Obviously, Outdoors Club plays a role in this, but what are a few of the hikes that you do as part of the hiking series?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll kind of hit the 2 classics to start. So the first one is Humpback Rock. We actually just did this on Sunday, where we did a sunset hike, which was really fun, and we did that in combination with the Black Business Student Alliance. And so we co-led this hike, and we hiked up to the top of Humpback. It's probably a 45-minute hike, but has this beautiful view of the Shenandoah Valley. Once you get to the top for sunset, I'd say that one's a little bit more of an beginner intermediate hike, but we also do ones in Shenandoah or in the area like Old Rag, which is one of the more flagship hikes of Virginia, which is a bit longer. It's around 7.5 miles, but it's a really, really fun, gorgeous hike, especially when you do it in the fall. So we try and, yeah, like I said, again, have hikes for a range of experiences. And we even do ones where we went to Monticello trails on the paved pathway to Monticello with the Darden Parents Association last year, which was really fun. So lots of strollers, lots of kids running around. So yeah, I mean, you can kind of go as light or as intense as you want, but they're small groups, and it's just a great way to get outside and explore the different parts of Virginia.
Thank you for sharing all of that about the Darden Outdoors Club. Certainly one of the most popular clubs. To your point, 400 members. That's a ton of the student body in one club. I want to talk a little bit more about electives, though. What was your guide as you were choosing electives? This is always interesting to me to hear how students are actually choosing their classes.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if members of or listeners know sort of how electives work in terms of choosing them, but the way it works at Darden is you get an allocation of points. Everyone gets the same allocation, and then you bid on classes. So if you get 1,000 points, and we'll make the math simple, you have 5 classes. You could go 200, 200, 200 for all of them, or you could say, I want to bid 700 on one class and then divvy up the other 300 points on the other 4 classes, however you want. And I really like that because it makes it fair. If you really want a class, you can put more points on it, and it's not whoever can click register the fastest on with your mouse. So I indexed on classes 2 ways. The first was teachers. I think that teachers at Darden are, just phenomenal. And when they teach electives, typically they teach in an area that might be close to their research projects. So they're really, really passionate about the topic. And if you can combine a good teacher with the passion of what they're focused on in their research, it just creates the environment for an incredible class. And then the other part of it was I am picking classes that I think I'm probably not as good at. And so to me, I came from, like I said, a background of product management. So user experience, product management, I actually feel that I know a decent amount about that. And you could double down on those topics. But I'm actually picking areas that I'm not as strong at and don't have the background from. So I find myself in more of the financial classes, the private equity, where you're building leverage buyout models. A lot of, what else am I in right now? There's an accounting class on ESG for environmental and social governance. And so you might be reading a little bit more 10Ks, but you're really trying to uncover how to measure it. And so I'm picking classes, that I don't have as much experience on. And I've been really enjoying that because every day you walk into class, you're going to learn something completely new that you didn't know.
Do you have any bucket list items, things that you want to make sure you do before graduation rolls around?
Oh, that's a good question. Not really. I think my main focus before graduation rolls around is to keep trying new things. And so I really would that's actually a piece of advice I give to first years is put yourself in scenarios that you might not have been in before. So, like I did a venture capital competition my first year, and I knew zero about venture capital. We ended up actually winning the Darden one and went up to New York to represent Darden on as a quote venture capital firm where we evaluated 3 startups. And that's an area that I met new people that I wouldn't have been exposed to, and learned a bunch about a topic that I didn't as well. And so I'm trying to find those opportunities to meet as many of my fellow second years and first years that I might not have known or might not know yet. And I think that's sort of how I approach it, is usually that's in conjunction with doing something that you haven't done before.
I like that. Continuing to stretch yourself, experience new things. That's important. I think business school, it can be real tempting to kind of just revert to what's comfortable and things that things about. But I've talked to a number of second years, in particular here on the podcast, when it comes to choosing electives, choosing things that are harder or they're less familiar to them, or continuing to seek out new experiences, even in that second year. So, Custis, last question for you here. What's a piece of advice that you would share with our prospective student listeners, something for them to keep in mind as they go forward on their own MBA journeys?
Yeah. To me, it's really goes back to why I came to school in the beginning, but really focus on investing in yourself. And let go of the outcome. I think too many people come into business school thinking about exactly what they want. I want to go to this consulting firm or to this bank, and I need to do this, this, and this. I actually think, to me, I would say just focus on, just trying to learn as much as possible and let go of the outcome. I think the outcome falls into place when you put the effort in. And I've really found that. I mean, for me in my journey, is the more I push myself to learn, to try new things, the more I'm prepared for, regardless of whatever outcome or opportunity comes up. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would have to a prospective student or incoming Darden student.
Yeah, I love that advice. So let me ask you, what's the next big Darden Outdoor Club activity that you're working on?
So the rafting trip is coming up. It's the last weekend of September, and so the way it works is the Gauley River is dam fed, so they only release it for 6 weekends a year. So this is one of the last weekends to go, and we'll get a big squad up there to do some class 5 and 4 rapids, and then also some class 2 and 3 rapids if you want to do the lower Gauley. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious whitewater rafting there on the upper Gauley.
Yeah, no, but the great part about it is we go, I'll be very clear, I'm not the one who's guiding the boat. We're going with very expert guides from a resort we've been, an outfitter we've been using for like the past 7 years. So they're vetted and they're quite talented, and so it's super safe, but it is some serious water, and that's what makes it really fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a great time. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful time, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and best of luck with everything here in your second year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
And that was my interview with Custis Coleman, a second-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2025. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's Darden, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.